Is this the easiest way to screen print at home? I think I may have found the easiest way to turn your tiny little office space into your very own screen printing studio. My name is Kelly, and I'm an illustrator and a printmaker based here in Seoul. And I've been screen printing for a long time. I used to screen print at a studio across the city from where I live. And last year I started my very own studio, but it's more focused on risograph printing, other forms of printing, and publishing. So I've really been missing screen printing, but I couldn't quite figure out a way to make all of the equipment, which can be pretty expensive if you buy it, or kind of hard to figure out how to make if you go the DIY route. I was really relieved when I got to try out Xtool's laser engraving screen printing tools. They're really compact and they fit really perfectly in my home studio. And so I wanted to show you guys how I use them in my house, how I transformed our little extra room into a screen printing space. And I also am going to compare it to other ways that I've printed before and kind of give you an idea of the possibilities in case this is something you're thinking of trying out for yourself. So without further ado, let's go upstairs and check out the little space that I've set up there. Okay, you guys are now on the second floor with me. And to my left, I have the screen printing apparatus. And then to my right, I have a room where we have set up the laser engraver. The screen and this whole system are designed together. So the screen really locks in here. And I'll show you in more detail how I use it when I have the finished screen. But yeah, this is the first important piece of equipment. So this is the laser printer. So this is the Xtool 10 watt S1 laser printer, and it actually comes with the screen printing kit. So if you buy them together, they're around 1,000 USD as a set, and it fits super nicely in this very tiny room. For reference, this table is 60 centimeters wide, and I could probably fit 4 of them max, across. The printer comes with these frames. So to prepare this, they've given me these different emulsion coated meshes. So I basically just need to fix one of those into the frame, and then it will be ready to print. Okay, we're actually out on the rooftop now, but I have a little more space here because I have a bigger table. So we basically take these little emulsion screens. They're already coated, but one thing I like about this, because I'm definitely someone who doesn't like waste, I don't like throwing things away, you can recoat these. So once you're done with your image, you can use them like a regular silkscreen and remove the emulsion and recoat it, because the mesh, the special thing about the mesh is I guess it doesn't get cut by the laser engraver. So the emulsion, you can use whatever you would use on a regular screen to coat these. And then I have the frame like I showed you before, and then we have these fixing pins. So I'll unwrap these, and we basically use these to push this emulsion mesh into the frame. This is our final screen. I'm really impressed with this because, first of all, it did it super cleanly. I'm gonna go ahead and print my project today, which is some covers for a little book stationery project. In my last video, I started printing a new zine, and as kind of an accompaniment to that, I'm making a little notebook stationery book, and so it also has this stamp theme. I'm gonna do a 2-color print. So next we'll move to the screen printing device, which I have right in front of me here. So let's try it out. I'll get my paper and we can start printing. I locked this into place here, and then there's a knob on the side here, so you can use this to move the screen up and down. So it means you can like print on boxes or elevated things as well, which is quite cool. And then this is like a platen, and there are some knobs at the front you can turn that will move it to the side or like up and down, so you can kind of adjust your image as need be. But today I'm just printing on paper, so it's gonna be pretty flat. So I'm just gonna adjust this. And when you do adjust the side, you have to be careful because it's gonna spring up, so apply some pressure to the top. I'm basically just creating a guide so I can always put the paper in the same place, so my registration will be correct. I should be able to take this off now. And I'm using this really beautiful paper. I think the ink will show up really cool on this because it's not white, so I think sometimes like neon inks or light colored inks pop a lot more on a different color paper like this, so that is my hope. And the first color I'm gonna do is yellow for this background, and the second color will be like a teal, and then I think I'm gonna do a second colorway, which I'm debating between like a red and blue or maybe a pink and like magenta or something. I'm still thinking about it, but I might have to go for the pink because it just seems like too much fun. All right, let's get printing. I also use this tape. It can be clear packing tape or any kind of packing tape basically to block off these areas that I'm not going to be printing yet. Okay, so we are back at the studio, and I want to show you guys both how the prints came out, but also I want to talk about why I chose this equipment for my home studio and who it might be suitable for if you're also interested in maybe using it. So the number one reason why I chose to use this laser engraving equipment at my home studio is because of both the space and the ease. So space-wise, as you guys saw, we have this kind of rooftop situation, and that means there is a lot of outdoor space, but in that room specifically inside, it's quite small. So it's not really that suitable for like a really big exposure unit or stuff that's really heavy that if we ever move, it will be hard to take out of the space. So I really like that all of the X-Tool equipment is very portable, pretty easy to set up, which leads to the second main reason that I thought it was a great idea to install it in our home studio is the ease of use and the limited mess. Because whenever I've worked in bigger screen print studios with like traditional UV light exposure and big washout stations and all of that, it is quite messy. It's gonna be a lot of, washing out screens and wait time as well for like screens to dry and all of that. So I think if you have a smaller space, laser engraving the screens is gonna be a lot easier than washing emulsion out of screens constantly at your house. Just cuts down a little bit on the mess. Of course, you still have to clean the screens afterwards, but I find that process a lot more manageable than washing out emulsion. And even speed-wise, it is quite fast to expose the screens. The screen for this took 1 hour to engrave, whereas if I was at a studio, I would have to be quite careful with not only like waiting for the emulsion to set and dry, but also keeping it in the dark while it dries. Even if I'm reusing the screens and recoating them myself, when I'm waiting for the emulsion to dry, I don't have to be as careful because I don't mind if it hardens. I want it to harden, and then the laser engraver just cuts out the image that I want. So that makes it a lot more easy in that sense as well. And if you don't have the space to be recoding your screens, you do have the option of just purchasing the pre-coded screens through Xtool. I think they're around $10 per sheet. So if you're doing something where you're reusing your screens a lot and you're not like constantly needing new screens, that can be a good option as well. Another thing I really liked about it is just that the system is very well designed. Like, they've thought of small things like the squeegee magnetizing to the screen so that it doesn't like fly off, which has happened to me many times at a normal screen printing studio. And it's just a little more streamlined and more professional than other DIY methods. So a lot of people expose screens in their bathroom, or they make their own light exposure units. That can work as well, but it does take a little more finagling. You have to be quite committed to figuring out the correct timing, or if you're building your own exposure unit, I think you have to be quite good at DIY kind of hands-on projects like that. And while I love printing and like hand making creatively, I'm definitely not someone who builds machinery. So if you're overwhelmed by that idea, this can be a really good alternative for having a home studio without a lot of extra effort. So the people I think this would work best for is if, like me, you have a pretty small home studio space, but you are a little more serious about screen printing. So you want your prints to be very consistent and have more of a streamlined and professional setup. I think this works really well. The size of the screen is around A3, and then the engraving space is a little smaller than A3. So it works really well for printing things like shirts or like smaller prints. I think if you're gonna want to make huge prints, if you have a home studio, you would probably want to do that elsewhere anyway, because making big prints that are like A2, A1, A0 size, you're gonna want that bigger equipment and a bigger space. So for me, if I ever want to make a big print, I'll still go to a studio to use their equipment. These days, I do try to make prints that are a little on the smaller side, so this works perfect for me. So yeah, if you're also interested in kind of like a lower mess and easier to set up system for home screen printing, I definitely recommend checking out the link in the description and perusing it for yourself. And now that I have the screen printing space all set up in our little kind of like rooftop studio, I'm really looking forward to sharing some more screen printing stuff with you guys. So I will definitely take you back to the rooftop and we'll do some more complicated prints, because there are some projects I want to do that are a little more complex with maybe 4 or 5 layers and a little bit more detailed in terms of registration and all of that. Until then, I will see you very soon. Bye.